Is everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon, and a special thanks for the police officers that came out and our elected and officials that you up here with me. Obviously, the Honorable Mayor Perkins, I have Councilman Green, have Superintendent Gorey, and have Mr. Lloyd Thompson, and I appreciate their support at this time as well. We called this press conference near the site of the horrific crime which occurred in the early morning hours this past Saturday, August 2nd. As you know, an infant, literally in the dawn of her life, was tragically killed in a senseless act of violence. That's enough. To sum up the violence our city has seen in the last few years, enough. Instead of blaming each other for the problems we're seeing on a national level, we need solutions. Real solutions, and not just talk. Each of us needs to ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong, or what could we do better? Are you raising your children and grandchildren to respect themselves and each other? Are you teaching that young life is precious and violent crime ruins the lives of many more people than just the victim and the perpetrator? Are you teaching our kids to respect authority and to follow the laws that are designed to keep us all safe and contribute to everybody's quality of life? If you are a church leader or volunteer, are you teaching empathy? If you coach a youth sports team, are you teaching your young athletes that you don't always win, but you should always play by the rules, work hard, and be a team player? If you're a teacher, are you holding students responsible for their actions? If you live in a neighborhood, are you keeping an eye out for suspicious vehicles and people and calling the police if you suspect wrongdoing? If you witness a crime, are you reporting it? Are you encouraging others to do the same? I'm not pointing a finger at any particular group, because I am also raising a family in this community, and we can all do better. We cannot rely on law enforcement to prevent all violent crime. We need a change of heart in our community. We need to unite as one and recognize that we are all responsible and we all have a role if we want to end the violence. With regards to Saturday's shooting, there are people watching who know something about the horrific crime that occurred. If you have information and you're withholding it from the police, then you are as guilty as the person who fired numerous rounds from a high-powered rifle into a house full of innocent children. I don't know how you can sleep at night. I don't know how you can live your life knowing that you could provide a sense of relief to a grieving family, neighborhood, city, and yet you choose to do nothing. It has been said that you are either part of the problem or a part of the solution, so don't be a part of the problem. You still have a choice. You still can redeem yourself and call us with information. Call Crime Stoppers, call the detective's office, you can call me personally. Just pass on what you know, regardless of how insignificant you think it is. For persons listening who committed this crime or were directly involved, I would like to think you did not intentionally kill an infant. But the fact is, an innocent life was taken from her mother and from her family in this heinous act of violence. You need to speak up and come forward. You cannot erase what you did. You cannot erase the tragedy, but you cannot own up to these actions and accept responsibility. Maybe you played a role in the shooting, but you were not ultimately responsible for it. We need to hear from you. Our detectives are working tirelessly to find the person or persons responsible for this tragedy, and we will find you. You cannot run. You cannot hide. So do us all a favor and turn yourselves in. Thank you for coming out this afternoon. I do want to announce to those individuals that have information or may live in the community, we're going to have detectives and officers out this evening in the area. Feel free to approach us, speak with us about anything you want, specifically help us solve this crime. Are there any questions?
Chief, are you personally involved in this? As you said, you've got your family that lives here. What did this, how did this shock you when you heard about it?
A sense of disbelief. the mayor and I had conversation, immediately after the shooting went out, and I discussed what was happening and the fact that I was coming out to the scene. And that put people at fear. But you're supposed to be safe in your own home. You should feel free and feel protected. And it bothers me greatly that a 1-month-old swaddled in baby clothing, as she was when she left the hospital, was killed in her own home. And that should bother everybody else, and that should bother the people that know something about this crime and have not come forward with information. You don't have to like the police. You don't have to appreciate the police. You should do this for the family members that lost a loved one. That's why you should come forward. You should do this to help the city, put the city at ease, and move forward with the grieving process.
Chief, we've been here before. We've been at this line. This line has been crossed. What is different about this than other times when children have been killed and we've had press conferences? What's the difference? What makes this stop? We've asked people to come forward before.
And there's not. I'm not going to say that there's a difference. If a child was killed in an act of violence, that's horrific. You can never get used to that. We should never become so accustomed to violent crime that we don't think it's important enough to call for a press conference and to put absolutely all our resources at hand to solve that crime. We're talking about a person who could absolutely not contribute to whatever caused this shooting. They wouldn't have been involved in any incident that would have precipitated it. They wouldn't have had an argument with somebody. They wouldn't have caused a fight. They didn't do anybody harm. They didn't steal anything. Literally as innocent of a victim as you can get, killed in their own home. And I wanted to make it clear that we know that there are people in the community that know what happened. In addition, even if the crime were committed by a single person, there were other people that assisted. There are other people that know something. That's who we want to come forward. Come forward and let us know what you know, and help yourself out with the charges. Be a benefit to yourself so that you aren't put into the same category as a person that actually fired those rounds.
Hey, Chief, and I understand you guys just had a police roundup in this area not too long ago. What other ways are you guys combating crime in this area, in Shreveport on here?
I think the biggest change you're going to see with what we've been doing is we're really trying to lead an effort of community support, of citizen engagement. A lot of these special operations we've run, our focus is on making non-law enforcement contacts. We're even tracking that, which is something we've never done before, because that's what's important to us. We're not stat-driven. We're not trying to make arrests. We're trying to make positive contacts with citizens so that when you have an event like this, a person feels comfortable enough to come to a police officer with anonymous information and know that we're going to keep that anonymity and we're going to follow through with what little bit you give us. We're going to complete the investigation. We're not going to put your name out there. We're not going to throw your name in a report. We just want to know what you know, and that takes some trust, and we're trying to build that trust. Yes.
All right, Chief. There are people that stay in this area or on this exact street. They do have cameras on their home. What forceful steps are you all taking to make them comply with releasing footage if they have any? Because they can say that the cameras wasn't working and they could have been working, or what forceful steps are you taking?
So good question. First of all, if you have any video and one of our investigators has not asked you for that video, please come forward. If we believe you have video, if we have probable cause that you have video in your residence and you're not allowing us access to it, we will and we have obtained search warrants to go into your home, view that video, and take whatever evidence may be there. We shouldn't have to use a search warrant to get video evidence of a young life being lost. That should be something that everybody should freely give to the police department.
Chief, you made a comment that was very powerful. You said it's not, say, the media's fault or someone else's fault that you're going to say blame to, but it is the citizens who need to step up and take responsibility.
And the citizens is all of us. Both those people standing out here, those standing out there in uniform, those not in uniform. This is our community, and we need to accept responsibility for some of the things that are going on. The answers lie within ourselves. Very few crimes are committed that only the perpetrator knows about. There's generally, I won't say always, but there is generally somebody else involved in that crime. They helped with the planning, or they heard rumors about it, or they lent the vehicle, or they lent the firearm. They had some involvement, and it's up to all of us to come forward and say, you know what, enough is enough. This isn't someone that stole a pack of beer out of the Circle K. This isn't a property crime. You know, this isn't something that can be replaced. A life was taken, an innocent life, and we need to put an end to this violence. We need to solve this crime and go forward. Put the message out there to the community that it will not be tolerated, and that if any information comes to your attention, you're going to bring it to the police department.
What leads do y'all have?
I really can't discuss any leads because it is an open investigation, but we do have some leads.
Do you have a vehicle description or anything we can get out for you that you want to get out there?
I don't know that we have enough specifics on a vehicle, Sergeant Jones, or anything like that. No. Any information we have that we can get out, we will certainly put that information out.
The house where the child was killed, is that the intended house?
And again, at this stage of the investigative process, we can't answer those questions. But thank you for coming out this morning, and thank you for your attention to this very important matter. Major, do you have anything?
Yeah, just overall, I can't make more of a finer point on this situation than what Chief Raymond just made. You know, this is a plea to the community to help us. We are throwing every resource we possibly have at this. Our officers, well, just to go back a bit, that morning after I got the call about the infant being killed, me and Chief Raymond talked for a while, and I mean, we concluded at the very beginning that this would not be business as usual. In a community when young people, again, some of the most innocent people we have in our community, life can be taken from their home. We can't have that as a norm. So we threw every resource we have out into the streets that morning. We're going to continue to do so even after this press conference. But what we need most is for the community to help us. We need community involvement all the way around. Yeah, we're putting more officers on our street, but my administration is committed to having a wholesome approach to the crime that this community experiences overall. Just this morning, I was alongside Superintendent Gorey, making sure we handed out backpacks and school supplies to our kids, making sure that our kids have an education. So this is a holistic approach that we have to get to in order to make sure that everybody in our community feels safe.
Superintendent Gorey, you want to address anything about the students?
Right, quickly, I will just speak to this time next week. We would have received right at 40,000 students back at school, and we certainly do appreciate the partnership that we've had not only with the Shreveport Police but also with the city of Shreveport, and we look forward to doing everything we can to welcome children back and to keep them safe while they're at school. But I cannot stress enough the importance of us protecting our most precious asset, that being our children. And we certainly as a school system stand beside the city as well as the police department in doing everything that we can to ensure children that they are safe and that we want them to grow up and to be citizens and have the opportunities that each of us has had. And certainly if we don't protect them while they're children, God help us, because we have cheated them out of something that should be a basic right to life. Thank you.
Superintendent, what efforts are you making with the police department and City Hall to have neighborhood schools reach deeper into the community to make them feel more secure as their kids are bused and walk to school? What are you working on now to accomplish that?
So one thing I will tell you is that when we began this conversation, this is a year where we began the redesign of our strategic plan, and one of the components of the community that we certainly do want to include in that is how do we define specifically our relationship with law enforcement as we try and create a safe environment for children. If you think about our children that are in schools today, many of them, well, none of them, they don't know what it's like to attend school and not have school violence as a part of an everyday routine. Our job in this parish has always been to make sure that we protect them from those type of horrific scenes, and certainly looking forward to more formally partnering with our police department as we go into our strategic planning process to make sure that that's defined.
Thank you. Superintendent Gorey, on my live Facebook video feed, I have a question from a local pastor. He said, ask, will more police presence solve the problem?
I don't think I'm necessarily the one that's qualified to answer that question. What I can tell you, though, is that there's quite a bit going on within our schools that we cannot speak to publicly because of the safety issues concerned, but there's quite a bit going on in our school to ensure that our schools are very safe and the children are protected while they're at school. I don't think anyone would argue that we're living in a very unique time when it comes to violence, and especially violence as it relates to our children in our schools. But please know that there is actions that are being taken to ensure that children are safe at school. We want our children, regardless of what's happening across our nation, to come to school, feel safe, and learn as much as they possibly can.
Chief, would you address that? What one of the local pastors sent me said, will more police presence solve the problem?
You're going to see more police presence, but that is not going to solve the problem. Solving the problem is having the entire community come together and work with us. Mayor?
Chief, yeah.